Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Author by Flying Alone. Audio novels by Novelist. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 76. First place. Xuanhuan was overwhelmed with shock. Initially, he had thought that he could disregard all the so-called geniuses in this Yuan tournament. Even if he didn't do his best, he'd still be able to easily get the first place. Things had gone according to his plan, at least they had, until he encountered the dark horse named Ling Han. Too strong. This time, he had really tried his best, yet there still was no sign of him having the upper hand. How could he not be extremely astonished at this? Ling Han was only in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and he was already powerful to this extent. Then when he reached the 7th layer and officially stepped into the late stage of element gathering tier, how powerful would he get? He couldn't be called a genius anymore. He was a monster. Even Xuanhuan hadn't been as powerful as this 3 years ago, right? Xuanhuan involuntarily thought. In the younger generation of Yuan city, Xuanhuan was not the most talented one. That honor belonged to Xuanhuan. 3 years ago, Xuanhuan, with a cultivation level of the 9th layer of element gathering tier, ascended to the 1st place with an absolute dominance over Xuanhuan. And in the tournament before that, Xuanhuan, with a cultivation level of the 4th layer of element gathering tier, managed to defeat many opponents in the 9th layer of element gathering tier to obtain the 1st place. Even after entering Huyang Academy, where geniuses of all kinds and varieties were gathered, the brilliance of Xuanhuan did not decrease in the slightest. Last year, he had already broken through to gushing spring tier and won a place among the top 10 strongest elites of the academy. Xuanhuan could only manage to admire and look up to this level of achievement. Now, Xuanhuan finally managed to see another monster who could match Xuanhuan, or was perhaps even more talented than the latter was. Because, when Xuanhuan had been in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, those of his opponents who were in the 9th layer were nowhere as strong as Xuanhuan was currently. As he fiercely battled, Xuanhuan thought that since Ling Han was so monstrously talented, he might as well help the latter establish a grand reputation and allow him to enter Huyang Academy with a glory that did not pale in comparison with Xuanhuan. And by then, Xuanhuan would definitely feel pressure, wouldn't he? Fine. Then he will give face to Ling Han and do him a favor. Of course, if it wasn't for the fact that Ling Han was powerful enough, Xuanhuan would definitely not deign to do this favor for Ling Han. But since Ling Han has now displayed power strong enough to match him, he'd be happy to do him this favor at such little cost to himself. After all, there was no idea what kind of heights this monster would reach in the future. He also had 3 black-grade alchemists as his support, so it wasn't a far-off dream for him to surpass Xuanhuan in power. This was a character deserving of his investment. This kind of stake, he was willing to gamble on it. Ha ha, Brother Ling is indeed exceptional. I forfeit this battle. Xuanhuan forfeited of his own volition. Ling Han gave a short laugh, and said, this battle could only be considered a draw. His strengths were the body, a dead tree ability, defenses, and a terrifyingly rapid recovery speed, while his weakness lay in the fact that the 5-element origin nuclei exhausted his reserves of origin power too quickly. Thus, he truly could not say for sure that he could defeat Xuanhuan, thus a draw was the fairest judgment of their battle. Xuanhuan gave a shake of his head and said, you're only in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and you're already able to match me. If I still insist on saying this was a draw, then my skin is really too thick. After speaking, he leaped onto the 2nd tournament stage voluntarily. Ling Han had reached the top. Hooah! A clamor of shocked gasps and exclamations could be heard downstage. Although such a conclusion was not really that unpredictable, when they actually heard the 4th prince declare his own forfeit, there was still quite a number of spectators who felt that it was all unreal. 6 years ago, the most talented genius in Yuan city of the time had overcome all the difficulties in his way and courageously won the 1st place in the tournament with a mere cultivation level of the 4th layer of element gathering tier, and now, 6 years later, a similar giant dark horse once again appeared. Was the field of martial arts in Da Yuan City starting to flourish? Ling Han made no pretense of modesty, because he truly did need the prize rewarded to the first-place winner of this tournament. Thus, he only raised his clasped hands in Qi Yongyi's direction, signifying that he would remember this favor, which he would repay tenfold in the future. At this point, there was only about half an hour left before sunset, and there remained only one tournament stage that was still battling. If the stage master won, then the heavy curtain would finally be drawn on this Da Yuan tournament. If he did not, then there would have to be a bit more waiting before the end. However, there were no more surprises. Half an hour later, the rankings of the top 10 strongest was finally confirmed. First place, Ling Han. He really got the first place. He really got the first place. Ling Dongxing kept mumbling. Excitement and disbelief were all over his face. His son, once a publicly acknowledged trash, actually would have the day when he would become the first-place winner in the Da Yuan tournament. He finally let out a bout of uncontrollable laughter, overwhelmed with joy. The top 10 martial artists all descended from their respective tournament stages. After this, there would be a banquet held at the royal house of the Da Yuan king to celebrate the success of the top 50 participants. Congratulations, Brother Ling. Congratulations. Qi Yongyi and the others all gathered around Ling Han to offer their congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Ling Han clasped his hands politely in response. Ha ha. Later we definitely have to get ourselves thoroughly drunk. But of course. Let's go. Let's go. Only the top 50 participants could attend the banquet. Their friends and family were not allowed to accompany them, so whether it was Ling Dongxing or Lu Yutong, neither could accompany Ling Han to the banquet. Very soon, Ling Han and the others arrived at the royal house of the Da Yuan king. This was a colossal residence, at least 10 times bigger than the residence of the fourth prince. The embellishments and decorations within were all extremely extravagant and luxurious, causing quite a few young men who had come from some smaller towns to look around with gaping mouths, as if they were village boys who had managed to enter the imperial palace. The host of this banquet was the Da Yuan king, and later on, he would be directly presenting the top 10 with their respective prizes. However, the Da Yuan king did not stay for too long. He was a powerful warrior of spiritual ocean tier, so he needed not put on any airs at all. He only needed to take a seat and he would naturally exude a terrifying aura, causing all the others to feel a kind of pressure. After he left, the atmosphere finally became lively. All of them were young people, so very quickly, they found similar topics of conversation. Soon, they would all be heading to Huyang Academy, so naturally they all wanted to make more friends. That way, they would be able to look after each other at the academy. However, Ling Han was a bit agitated. He was waiting very impatiently for the presentation of the Dark Moon Grass, a treasure that even powerful warriors of Heaven Tier would feel envy over. As long as it had not entered his pocket yet, there was no way for him to set his mind at ease. When he thought about it, it was actually quite funny for him to become this impatient with his temperament. After waiting for 2 hours, this banquet finally ended, and the prizes for the top 10 were all presented to their winners, contained in small boxes. Ling Han opened his box and took a look. Inside lay a herb that was about a foot long. Each of the leaves were crescent-shaped, and their color resembled darkened moonlight. It was indeed the dark moon grass. Ling Han let out a breath in relief. He was just about to take his leave, but Qi Yongyi and the others all came over to make small talk with him, so he couldn't leave just yet. It wasn't until about midnight that the guests finally departed, and Ling Han could finally return to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. The first thing he did was begin preparation to concoct an alchemical pill. Although the spatial pill was something that even powerful warriors of Heaven Tier would feel envious over, it could still be taken by martial artists of Element Gathering Tier, so strictly speaking, it was only a yellow-grade mid-level alchemical pill. Ling Han of course was able to concoct it. He had already long since prepared all the other ingredients necessary. The only thing missing was the main ingredient, dark moon grass. Since everything was ready now, he immediately began to concoct the pill. Now that he was in element gathering tier, concoction of a yellow-grade mid-level alchemical pill was naturally a piece of cake. After only half an hour, he had successfully concocted the spatial pill. Unfortunately, there was only one. Without any hesitation, he immediately swallowed the spatial pill. He promptly sat down and waited quietly for the pill to take effect. Hong. Very quickly, there occurred a tremendous change within his body. It was as if his dantian had become an ocean where raging waves were surging. Each time the waves crashed, the space within his dantian would enlarge by a little bit. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 77. 100 times. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The space within Ling Han's dantian continuously enlarged at a shockingly rapid pace. He felt as if his body was about to burst, but in truth, the dantian was a small world. Even if it became larger than this whole planet, no physical changes would appear on him. 1. Ling Han, with the help of the medicinal effects from the spatial pill, stimulated the continued expansion of his dantian. At this point, every bit of increase could only be beneficial. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. Ling Han was overwhelmed with astonishment and joy, for there was still a large amount of medicinal effects that had not yet been expended. So to what extent would this allow his dantian to expand? But when he thought longer about it, this was only normal. This was an alchemical pill that would cause even powerful warriors of heaven tier to be moved, and now it was actually taken by him, a lowly martial artist of element gathering tier, so how awesome would the effects be? Unfortunately, the people now actually don't recognize the kind of priceless treasure that was the dark moon grass, and extravagantly use it to break through to gushing spring tier. What a waste. Unfortunately, a martial artist could only take a single spatial pill once in his lifetime. If he took another, there would be no effects at all. If it had not been for this, Ling Han believed he would be able to get his hands on more dark moon grass. However, on the other hand, for most people, the spatial pill was not very valuable because rarely would they battle until the point that their origin power was completely exhausted. The increase of space within the dantian only improved the martial artist's ability to battle longer. There was no change in the amount of power behind each attack. But for a minority of geniuses, this was an extremely valuable item, as they would often battle until the point where they had no way out. So the larger the space within their dantian, the longer they would be able to continue battling, and on many occasions, this would be a lifesaver for them. Ling Han was of course even more pleased. He possessed the 5-element origin nuclei, and previously, the space within his dantian was really too tiny. There was completely too little origin power for his use. 80 times, 90 times, 100 times, and finally, all the medicinal effects of the spatial pill were exhausted. Ling Han finally opened his eyes. Expanded by 100 times. If this spatial pill was swallowed by a powerful warrior of heaven tier, the space within the dantian would only expand by 1%. However, even this single percent would be larger by 100 times than his own expansion of 100 times. There was absolutely no comparison between the two. It was not because the spatial pill was not awesome enough, but because his current cultivation level was really too low. However, with every future increase in his cultivation level, the degree of expansion of the space within his dantian would also be much higher than others, though it would become gradually less and less, until the point where it would only be an expansion by 1% when he reached heaven tier. As a result, there was no loss in him taking the pill so early on. Instead, the earlier he took it, the earlier he could make use of it. The benefits of the spatial pill could last from element gathering tier all the way to heaven tier, or even until shattering void tier in future. He did not immediately stand up. Instead, he stimulated the 5 elements mix chaos lotus to continuously absorb spiritual chi, which would be transformed into his own origin power within his dantian, building up his reserves. Though the space within his dantian was now extremely large, the 5 elements mix chaos lotus was too mighty, and together with the 5 elements heaven grade skill, absorbing and refining spiritual chi was done at an excessively rapid pace. Only one night had passed, yet he had managed to fill the colossal space within his dantian completely. This also meant that in the future, if he battled to the point of exhaustion, he would require at least one night to recover to his prime condition if he did not take any alchemical pills to accelerate his recovery. Although he had not slept at all the night before, Ling Han still felt very energetic. After reaching element gathering tier, cultivation would be able to replace sleep to a limited extent. Moreover, he had only stayed awake for a single night, so it really wasn't a big deal. Hannah, when do you plan to return to Grey Cloud Town? Ling Dongxing asked him when he arrived at the external rooms to eat. Ling Han considered for a moment, and said, there is quite a number of people who have asked me to share a meal with them, and I can't really make excuses, so maybe after another 3 or 4 days. Very well, then you stay here for a few more days while I return first and prepare a celebratory feast for you. Ling Dongxing said, filled with excitement. He couldn't wait to let all the townspeople know that Ling Han had won the first place in this Dayuan tournament. All right. Take care on your journey, father, Ling Han said with a smile. Ling Dongxing nodded. He did not worry about Ling Han, because his son's prowess was already above his own, so even if he stayed behind, he couldn't protect Ling Han anyways. Moreover, he was still the clan head, and after being absent for so long, he had to return as soon as possible to take charge of things back home. After breakfast, Ling Dongxing set out to return to Grey Cloud Town while Ling Han was dragged off by Xuanhuan and the others to enjoy a meal here and have fun there. Because these people had all thrown their matches appropriately for him in the tournament, this was a favor, so Ling Han naturally could not be ungrateful. On the second day, Xuanhuan invited Ling Han to have fun at the wrestling ring. What was so fun about the wrestling ring? Ling Han didn't understand, but could not resist Xuanhuan's enthusiasm and so was dragged along by the latter there. It was also the place where the Dayuan tournament had been held a few days ago. At this moment, all the tournament stages had been dismantled, and there was only a single battle ongoing in such a wide area. 5 wrestlers were currently being surrounded in an attack by 13 demonic beasts. The battle was fierce and the scene was bloody, whereas the spectators that were watching kept releasing shouts of excitement. They are all prisoners awaiting their execution. Though the battles here are extremely dangerous, if they manage to win 10 times in a row, they would be pardoned and regain their freedom, Xuanhuan explained. Ling Han nodded. Majority of empires had this kind of system. After prisoners were sentenced to death, they could choose to enter a battle to the death in the wrestling ring and win for themselves the chance to continue living. Of course, majority of them died in their battles. The number of people who managed to win their own freedom could be counted on the fingers of a single hand. Good. All of the spectators shouted suddenly, because one of the prisoners had made a mistake and 3 demonic beasts had worked together and ripped off his arms. The agony caused him to continuously scream in pain, but his screams did not last too long, because soon after, his throat was torn out and his flesh was divided amongst the starving demonic beasts. The spectators here have all come for this kind of death and this kind of bloody scenes. Seeing such a scene, some crazy woman even tore apart her shirt and shrieked in excitement, her breasts exposed and trembling in her emotional high. The remaining 4 did not show any sign of panic. Obviously, they have experienced such a thing many times, so they continued to rely on each other and only concentrated on the enemies right in front of them. Gambling is allowed here. Is Brother Ling interested? Xuanhuan turned to him and asked. Ling Han shook his head in refusal. He had never had a liking for this kind of thing that used the lives of others for entertainment purposes. So Brother Ling does not like this kind of battles. To be honest, neither do I. But the battle after this would definitely be very exciting, Xuanhuan said mysteriously. An elite of gushing spring tier who's a rapist. Who knows how many women have been ruined by his hand. But he is indeed very powerful. He has not died no matter what was done to him. Today, it would be his 1000th battle, and if he wins it, that'd be 1000 wins for him. If he wins again, there would be no choice but to set him free. A prisoner of body refining tier would be set free after winning 10 times in a row. For element gathering tier, the condition was 100 wins, while for gushing spring tier, the condition was 1000 wins. A spark of killing intent involuntarily flashed through Ling Han's eyes. Out of the types of people he hated the most, depraved lechers were in the top 3. Such scum should be directly killed without hesitation. There was no need to give them any sliver of a chance. Today, many of the spectators have come to watch this depraved lecher receive his just punishment. Qi Yongyi said, and for this reason, our royal house of the Da Yuan King has even assigned an elite to battle with him. There is absolutely no way we would allow him to avoid getting his just deserts. While they had been speaking, the battle had neared its conclusion. Surrounded and attacked by more than 10 demonic beasts, after 7 demonic beasts died, the 4 prisoners were mauled to death by the remaining beasts one by one, causing the spectators watching to cheer. Everyone, before the climax event on our agenda today, we would like to invite all of you to enjoy a little program. A host entered into the ring, raised his hand, and 2 iron fences on either side of the ring were raised. From behind both iron fences, an iron cage was respectively pushed out. One of the cages contained an extremely strong-looking mature wild wolf, while the other cage actually contained a little girl that could only be 5 or 6 years old at most. Ling Han suddenly stood, flames of rage bursting into life within him. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 78. Wild Girl. Everyone, a team of martial artists entered the 7 Wind Mountains on a hunt a few days ago, and in the den of a fierce tiger, discovered this little girl. The strangest thing was, this little girl not only was not devoured by the fierce tiger, but had even been living with it for quite a few years. She should have been abandoned as an infant in the wild, and was brought back by the tiger to its den. The host introduced the little girl's background, pointing at her. She might look small, but she is exceptionally strong. She's also very violent, does not know how to speak, and nor does she know how to walk on 2 legs. Her behavior is every bit like that of a wild beast. And now, let us all watch her performance in a battle with this wild wolf. All the spectators turned their attention to the little girl. The girl had a head of unkempt hair and her whole body was filthy, covered with dust and dirt. Overall, she had a very bedraggled appearance and a very thin figure. Compared against that wild wolf, it was practically like comparing an infant with an adult. How was she supposed to battle against an opponent like that? The only end result would be being killed without mercy. Heng. Qi Yongyi had also risen to his feet, a displeased expression on his face. This was too much, to actually use such a small child to entertain the audience. They were completely without any conscience. Ziu. Ling Han jumped into the wrestling ring, and said, "Release this child." Hey, hey, hey. Don't you know the rules? This is the property of the Da Yuan King, how dare you come here to make trouble? The host was at first stunned, before becoming extremely angry. But soon after, he was again stunned, and pointing at Ling Han, he exclaimed, "Yi, you're the champion of this year's Da Yuan tournament." After he managed to recognize Ling Han, he dared not be too rash and explained, "Young Master Ling, this is the rule of the wrestling ring. Those who enter the wrestling ring can only battle. There is no difference between male or female, old or young. Then let me ask you, has she willingly entered the battles in the wrestling ring? Or, what crime has she committed that she has no choice but to battle?" Ling Han asked. This. The host was instantly lost for words. In this world where only the strong would be respected, a wild girl would of course not engender anyone's attention. So what if she was sent to battle in the wrestling ring? Who would care? Who would mind? With this question from Ling Han, the host had no idea how he was supposed to answer. "Set her free." Qi Yongyi had also leaped into the ring, and coldly commanded the host. "Yes, 4th Prince." The host hurriedly assented. This was a man who may very possibly inherit the position of the Da Yuan King. Naturally, no one would dare to disregard the words of Qi Yongyi. Of course, he dared not release any prisoners even if it was the command of the 4th Prince. However, even if she was released, this wild girl would at most not have any identification papers, and could be taken by anyone as a slave. Even if she was released, it wasn't a big deal. He ordered for the cage to be unlocked, and the little girl immediately pounced out like a cheetah. She was extremely strong, and the impact from her pouncing actually knocked down one of the workers in body refining tier. She had completely taken herself to be a wild beast. His small mouth opened, revealing 2 pairs of eerie, snow-white teeth, aiming a bite at that man's throat. This was completely the attack style of a fierce tiger, biting down on the throat to cut off the air supply of its prey. Ling Han quickly acted. He took hold of the little girl's neck, but the little girl instantly swiped her claws at Ling Han without any hesitation. His sleeve was ripped open, a white mark left on Ling Han's forearm. However, he had already learned the body a dead tree ability, so while the wild girl's claws were sharp, they only managed to leave behind a few white marks on his arm. The wild girl bared her white teeth at Ling Han, as if she was a fierce beast caught in a trap, looking very irritable. Ling Han looked slightly surprised, because he was in the element gathering tier and possessed extremely powerful strength. Yet if he had not gripped tightly enough and held on, this wild little girl may have successfully struggled free from his grasp. But this wild little girl was only 5 or 6 years old, so she definitely should not have awakened her spirit base yet. How then was it possible that she possessed such powerful strength? Out of curiosity, Ling Han used his consciousness to scan over her, and discovered there was actually origin power in the blood and flesh of the little girl. Unexpectedly, she really was a martial artist, and was in about the 3rd layer of body refining tier. How was this possible? After a martial artist had awakened their spirit base, he could, with a cultivation technique, begin cultivation, absorbing spiritual chi and transforming it into origin power to refine his own blood, flesh, and bones. This was the body refining tier. Each martial artist cultivated with a cultivation technique, so naturally there would be signs of the circulation paths of his origin power left behind on the martial artist's body in accordance with the cultivation technique he was practicing. That was why a martial artist with a higher cultivation level was able to identify his opponent's cultivation level based on his circulation paths. That was also why no one had discovered that this wild little girl had the ability of the 3rd layer of body refining tier, because there was no sign that she had cultivated before. Ling Han was different. He still possessed a sliver of the consciousness of heaven tier, and so managed to see through to the girl's essence. Could this little girl actually have a special constitution? But he had only heard of special constitutions being able to improve the owner's battle prowess, and had never heard that there was a special constitution that would aid the owner's cultivation. But if this little girl was not the descendant of those powerful races, then why had the fierce tiger adopted her? Moreover, she managed to form her own origin power without practicing any kind of cultivation technique. This was illogical no matter what, and the only explanation was that she had some kind of special constitution. True, there were so many different kinds of special constitutions in this world, how could he manage to comprehend all of them? Ling Han's expression remained unchanged. He turned and said to Yi, "I'll bring this little girl back first and give her a good cleaning." "Yi, you're not going to watch the upcoming battle?" Yi asked strangely. The battle of a martial artist in Gushing Spring tier did not come around every day, and to those at the peak of element gathering tier, watching this kind of battle would somewhat help them in their attempt to break through to Gushing Spring tier. No. Ling Han shook his head. For him, comprehension of the different tiers was something that he had absolutely no need of. He brought the wild little girl back to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. The girl was extremely violent. She kept trying to find chances to bite him or scratch him, so Ling Han did not dare to be too careless. After all, the little girl's teeth were really powerful. If bitten, even he would feel a little pain. One has to know that he has already learned the body a dead tree ability. Any ordinary attack not only would not be able to injure him, he wouldn't feel any bit of pain from it. He had possibly picked up a valuable treasure. Ling Han brought the little girl back to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Lu Yutong had not gone with him as she had been making the final bit of accumulation, preparing to break through to Gushing Spring tier. She had just walked out, and seeing the dirty little child hanging from his hand, she could not help but be surprised. "It's good that you're here. Give this little girl a bath while I go out and buy her some clothing." Ling Han threw the wild little girl to her. But you have to be careful, this little girl is quite strong, and has very sharp teeth. If you're bitten, you'll definitely bleed. Lu Yutong's face was filled with shock. She was in the 9th layer of element-gathering tier and long past body-refining tier, so all the muscles in her body have been refined and became extremely tough. Only sharp weapons should be able to injure her, but now a little girl's bite could actually cause her to bleed too. But Ling Han was definitely not the type to speak nonsense, so she still very carefully took hold of the wild little girl. Ling Han went out and bought some children's clothing. By the time he returned, the wild little girl had completely changed. She was now like a lotus flower emerging from clear water, definitely a beauty in the bud. But the little girl was currently completely wrapped up in bedsheets, tied with a rope. This was not something that the strength of the 3rd layer of body refining tier could break out of, so she looked very funny. Though the little girl's appearance has completely changed and was given a gorgeous transformation, there was absolutely no decrease in her ferocity. She had still her small mouth open, growling in a low voice at Lu Yutong. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 79. A slip of the tongue after drinking. You really weren't kidding, this little girl's teeth are really powerful. Lu Yutong raised her left arm. Bandages were wrapped around her palm and elbow. Obviously, she had been bitten. Previously, even Ling Han had been bitten when he let his guard down, proving that this little girl was really very good at sneak attacks. More importantly, you simply wouldn't believe how fierce her teeth were unless you experienced it with your own body. This girl was definitely born in the year of the dog. Ling Han shook his head. She's much more powerful than a dog, she's definitely born in the year of the tiger. Lu Yutong had already experienced some hardship, and shook her head with lingering fear. The first time she was bitten was indeed due to her carelessness, but she had still been bitten a second time even though she had had her guard up, proving how scary this wild little girl was. Of course, this was also because she had not thought of harming the wild girl. Otherwise, no matter how sharp her teeth was, Lu Yutong would have easily killed her with one swat. Where did she come from? Lu Yutong asked curiously. She had been living in the wild, raised by a tiger. I don't know anything else besides that. Ling Han bent down in front of the wild little girl, his hand extended to tease her. Little girl, you probably don't have a name, so I'll have to give you one. Who? The wild little girl kept opening and closing her mouth, her teeth clicking noisily together, as she chased after Ling Han's finger for a bite. You were raised by a tiger, so we'll call you Who Knew then. Ling Han said with a smile, then turned to Lu Yutong and asked, is there something like a birthmark on her? With that, we'll be able to help her find her real parents in the future. One. There is one. Lu Yutong nodded. There was a very strange mark on her ankle, though I can't tell if she was born with it or someone had marked her after her birth. Ling Han lifted the covers to take a look, and there was indeed a mark on the little girl's left ankle. It was about the size of a copper coin, with a very complicated pattern. He really could not tell what the pattern meant. Theoretically, such a complicated marking should have been branded after her birth, but there was absolutely no sign of any such branding, so it looked as if she had been born with it. It was really very odd. What do you plan for Who Knew? Lu Yutong asked. She had already started feeling affection for this little girl. This little girl only thinks that she is a wild beast. If you don't plan well enough, she will definitely get into trouble. Ling Han nodded and said, let's have her follow us first. Wait until she regains her human intelligence before we decide the next step. Who Knew did not think that she was a human being at all. She was like a wildcat or a tiger cub. They helped her put on some clothing, but she immediately ripped the clothes off her. If they did not tie her up, she would definitely be even more nimble than a monkey. What was even more of a headache for Ling Han was the fact that she did not eat cooked meat. Whether it was grilled or boiled meat, she would not touch a single bite of it if it was put in front of her. Instead, her eyes would fix upon Ling Han's neck, killing intent brimming within her eyes. Obviously, she would be happier to have Ling Han as her feast. To remove her wild nature, the first step was to change her eating habits. Ling Han took a bite of the grilled meat in front of the little girl, then put the grilled meat back down in front of her, then stepped back. Hu Nu kept holding herself back from making any moves, but after half a day, her stomach grumbled, and her eyes had become even fiercer. Still, she did not make a move to eat the meat until it was about midnight, and she finally could bear it no longer. She squirmed a bit, and finally took and began to eat the grilled meat. Both her hands and feet were tied, so she could only wriggle forward like a worm. Her appetite was terrifyingly large. She quickly finished off such a huge pork leg. The little girl licked her lips as if she had not eaten enough. The expression on her face was very strange, because she had never eaten such delicious meat. On the second day, Ling Han continued to attend various social gatherings, and on the fourth day, Li Hao and his other old friends finally found the opportunity to meet him. "I never thought that you would actually manage to get the first place. Yeah, you are really impressive, too amazing. I am more envious of Li Hao. He's going to enter into Huyang Academy very soon and Big Brother Ling will take care of him there, so there's no fear that he's going to be bullied in an unfamiliar place." Lu Dong and the others talked in succession as they continued to fill his cup with wine, rejecting his own attempts to reciprocate the gesture. Due to their inferior status, they could only wait until the majority of the others had dispersed before they dared to come meet with Ling Han. Today, they naturally came with the intent to get Ling Han drunk. However, when they had about reached half a round of drinks, Chen Pengju revealed a face filled with hesitation. After a long while, he finally spoke. "I may have caused a huge disaster." "What's the matter?" everyone else asked. Chen Pengju clenched his teeth and said, "When we returned from the Balance Mountains, I shared a drink with one of my clansmen. I drank a bit too much, and it seems like I accidentally spoke about the incident with Hang Zan." "What?" Li Hao and the other four immediately stood, their faces instantly paling. Hang Zan was the grandson of the seventh elder of Stone Wolf Gate, and recently, people from the Stone Wolf Gate have all been searching for his killer. If the information was leaked out, then that seventh elder from Stone Wolf Gate would definitely come running. A powerful warrior of gushing spring tier. Ling Han did not take it to heart too much. He too had the assistance of warriors of gushing spring tier, and the Stone Wolf Gate should know that there stood 3 black-grade alchemists behind him, so they definitely would not dare to be rash. Perhaps only that seventh elder may possibly go on a mad rampage. After all, his flesh and blood grandson had died, so it depended on his temper. If he was the fiery, short-tempered type, then it was indeed possible that he would make a murderous charge towards Ling Han. "So did you say something or not?" Lu Dong asked anxiously. Guo Rock Town fell within the area under the jurisdiction of the Stone Wolf Gate, and the seventh elder had just cause on his side vengeance for his grandson, so even if he massacred their clans, the most the Da Yuan King would do was to verbally reprimand him. After all, this was a world where the strongest was respected. "I really can't remember, I really drank too much that day," Chen Pengju said, scowling miserably. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "If that person from the Stone Wolf Gate really went charging to your clans, then just be honest and tell him to come look for me." "No, Big Brother Ling, we will definitely not betray you." "That's right. How could we be so disloyal?" Lu Dong and the others all shook their heads in refusal. But were their words true, and how many of them were actually speaking truthfully, that was another matter entirely. Ling Han smiled, and said, "There's no harm, this is the truth anyways. Moreover, I have the ability to protect myself, so I do not fear that seventh elder. But for you guys, I can't guarantee your safety, so listen to me and tell the truth." Seeing Ling Han insist so strongly, Lu Dong and the rest could only nod their heads in agreement while hoping Chen Pengju's tongue had not slipped after drinking. If that was the case, then all would be well. With such a heavy worry weighing down on their hearts, the atmosphere obviously became very stifling, so very soon, the gathering concluded and everyone returned to their own respective homes. When Ling Han returned to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, he saw Lu Yutong was teaching Hu Nu how to speak. However, the wild girl was still very violent. She did not pay any attention to Lu Yutong's attempts and only kept baring her teeth and snarling, looking very much like a little tiger. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "You have to take advantage of her weakness. Doesn't the little girl like to eat? So you can just use food as a reward. If she performs well, give it to her, making her slowly learn to obey you." Lu Yutong rolled her eyes at him, and said in annoyance, "You really think it's like raising a kitten or a puppy? This girl is much fiercer than any kitten or puppy," Ling Han said with a click of his tongue. He stretched out a hand to touch Hunyu's head, and the girl immediately tried to bite him, but thankfully, he managed to pull his hand back in time. Ko, ko, ko. A series of knocks was heard from the door. Ling Han and Lu Yutong both turned around to see an alchemist's apprentice standing at the doorway, who said, "Young Master Ling, there arrived someone who claims he is from the Ling clan of Grey Cloud Town outside. He says he has some urgent matter and wishes to meet you." Oh, Ling Han walked out. What could it be? His father had just returned, so logically, there shouldn't be any big issues, right? Could it be the seventh elder of Stonewolf Gate? Alarm rose in his heart, and he immediately quickened his walk into a run. Seeing this, Lu Yutong left Hunyu behind and quickly followed after. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 80, Comeback of the Cheng clan. Time slowly turned back to a few days ago. Grey Cloud Town, Cheng clan residence. An extremely powerful aura suddenly spread out from the deepest parts of the Cheng clan residence. It was a very terrifying aura, so much that an intense feeling of fear rose within the heart of even an elite in the 9th layer of element gathering tier like Cheng Wenkun. Yet Cheng Wenkun did not feel anxious at all. Instead, an overjoyed expression appeared on his face and he actually started to wave his hands and dance around. Third uncle has broken through. Ha ha ha. Third uncle has broken through. Ling clan, you people were so arrogant before, but you would never have thought that my third uncle has been in seclusion all this while, breaking through to Gushing Spring tier. His expression turned grim all of a sudden, and he declared, from now onwards, there will be no more Ling clan in Grey Cloud Town. Ha 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 ha. A bout of loud laughter was heard, and a thin old man was taking big strides into the main hall. Waves of terrifying power continuously spread out from his body as he approached. This was because he had just broken through, and so had not yet managed to completely control his own power. He was Cheng Wenkun's third uncle, Cheng Jiyu, a martial arts maniac. He was already acclaimed as the top elite martial artist of the whole Cheng clan years ago, yet did not have much interest in having power over the clan. Instead, he had kept himself in seclusion to break through to Gushing Spring tier. Even in their own Cheng clan, many clansmen had all thought that he had long since died. And his hard work had paid off, for he had successfully broken through to Gushing Spring tier. This was the strongest level of existence in the whole of Grey Cloud Town, more than enough to sweep away all opponents with his overwhelming might. Greetings, third uncle. Congratulations, third uncle. Cheng Wenkun half knelt on the ground, his face filled with overwhelming joy. Rise. Cheng Jiyu raised his hand. His eyes turned away from Cheng Wenkun, and he said, "Call Xuanhuan and the others back. I have not seen him for quite a few years." Third uncle, Xuanhuan, he's dead. Cheng Wenkun said, choking with grief. What? Cheng Jiyu suddenly slammed a hand onto the table. Peng. This table made of excellent sandalwood instantly turned into broken pieces. His furious eyes widened, and he said, "Who has killed my grandson?" Cheng Xuanhuan was Cheng Jiyu's direct grandson. He had also inherited the latter's talent, and as a result, was taken in as a disciple by the Stonewolf sect. Not even Cheng Hao or Cheng Xiang had this kind of talent. That little bastard from the Ling clan, Ling Han. Cheng Wenkun immediately said. Pa. Cheng Jiyu's hand rose and fell quickly, giving Cheng Wenkun a slap. He sneered. Then what are you doing, still sitting here? Why did you not come see me with the head of that little bastard? Cheng Wenkun did not dare to have any feelings of anger. In front of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear, he wouldn't be able to raise even a single finger. He quickly knelt, and said, "How could I not want to avenge Xuanhuan? It's just that there is an elder from Stone Wolf sect supporting him, I can't touch him." An elder from Stone Wolf sect? Cheng Jiu's eyes narrowed slightly. All the elders of Stone Wolf sect were in gushing spring tear while he himself had just broken through to this tier. Whoever that elder was, it was impossible he would be able to match him in a battle. But very quickly, he gave a humph, and said, "At most, that little bastard must have curried a bit of favor with that elder. Even if I killed him, that elder would never think of declaring a blood feud with me. Let's go. Come with me and we will immediately charge towards the Ling clan residence. Since he dared to kill my grandson, then I will slaughter every clansman of the Ling clan in exchange." Cheng Wenkun was of course overjoyed. He had been afraid that Cheng Jiu would fall back, but thanks to the death of Cheng Xuanhuan, Cheng Jiu was overwhelmed with rage, so much that he had no fear for even an elder of Stone Wolf sect. Practically the whole Cheng clan moved out, all of them bursting with killing intent as they made their way to the Ling clan residence. Moving so pompously through the streets of course attracted the attention of the smaller clans in the town, as they all came out to observe the spectacle. What's the matter with the Cheng clan? Could they be about to start a war with one of the clans? Aside from the Ling clan, what other clan is worthy of such a big movement from the Cheng clan? That can't be true, can it? The power of the Ling clan is practically equal to the power of the Cheng clan, and if a war sparks up between these two great clans, both sides would only suffer. The Cheng clan couldn't be so foolish, right? No. Don't you guys know that the Cheng clan is not having a good time lately? I heard that their main source of income has received an all-out suppression from the Ling clan, and now, they can't even afford to pay the salaries of their servants. Yes. I heard about that too. Lately, many of the servants and guards of Cheng clan have all secretly ran off. Are they in such a terrible condition? Then no wonder the Cheng clan is going all out now. Otherwise, they'd be wiped out by the Ling clan in the future. At least, if they made a gamble now, there could be a chance of victory for them. Cheng Wenkun heard the discussions from around him, and could not stop a cold smile from appearing on his face. Going all out? How could that be? They now had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear fighting on their side, and they were going to wipe out the Ling clan. Going all out? Only the Ling clan needed to do that, but it would all be pointless effort. One finger of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear would be enough to suppress all resistance. The Cheng clan advanced like a great flood while the townspeople followed behind them to watch the ensuing show. This was a great battle between the two great clans. If any one of them missed it, they'd definitely regret it for life. Very quickly, they set out from the town's east side and arrived at the west side, which was where the Ling clan residence was located. With such a big commotion, it of course caused a disturbance within the Ling clan. Ling Dongxing had just returned, and he immediately stepped out, with his clansmen behind him. Ling clan head, long time no see. Cheng Wenkun raised a hand, and all the clansmen of the Cheng clan halted their steps. He smiled at Ling Dongxing, his face filled with smugness because very soon, this old rival of his would be kneeling down in submission in front of him. Ling Dongxing frowned. They had obviously come with bad intentions. He raised his voice and said, "Brother Cheng has brought so many people here, are you here to make a demonstration?" Ha 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 ha. Cheng Wenkun laughed loudly, before suddenly stopping. He said in a deep voice, "That's right, I'm here today to make a demonstration. Ling Dongxing, immediately order the members of your clan to surrender, and I can consider killing a few people less." Cheng Wenkun, have you gone mad? Ling Dongxing asked coldly. This was a humongous joke. You think I'm joking with you? Cheng Wenkun laughed coldly. Are you not? Ling Dongxing asked back. Of course not, a cold voice declared. An old man with a tall, thin figure left the ranks of the Cheng clan and passed Cheng Wenkun by, his face filled with killing intent. Yi, who's this old man? Those who had gathered around to watch the spectacle were all curious about the identity of this mysterious old man. Was there such a person in the Cheng clan? It looks like his status is not beneath Cheng Wenkun's. I've got it, he's Cheng Ji. An old man suddenly gasped in surprise. Everyone said that he has long died. I never thought he's actually still alive. Ling Dongxing of course recognized Cheng Ji, though the latter now looked much older than he had last seen him. He raised his clasped hands in Cheng Ji's direction as a sign of respect to someone from the generation before his. But the issue now concerned the pride of the two clans, so naturally, he would not give in easily. He said, if the Cheng clan insists on battle, there is no member of the Ling clan that is afraid of death. Heng, you think you're worthy of standing as an equal with my Cheng clan? Cheng Ji stretched out a hand, and pressed down on Ling Dongxing. I'll put you down first. You've gone too far. Ling Dongxing raised his palms in a counterattack. He had been praised as the top genius in the whole of Grey Cloud Town in the past, and so of course possessed exceptional power. As his palms moved, more than 10 images of palm strikes could be seen, and the attacks were extremely fast. How could a firefly be worthy of competing with the moon over which is brighter? Cheng Ji's finger extended, and there actually appeared a gigantic palm about the size of a millstone which pressed down on Ling Dongxing. Origin power given form, gushing spring tear. Ling Dongxing gasped in shock, his face immediately turning pale. He finally understood where the Cheng clan got such confidence from. Cheng Ji had actually broken through to gushing spring tear. End of the chapter. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao will be read in 5 chapters for every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.